Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Don Zavis, one of the co-founders of the Tucson Paranormal Society. Thank you for joining us on Inside Tucson Paranormal. We have a really not only amazing guest, but it had some pretty, pretty amazing experiences. So you're going to be in for quite the ride here on the half hour. So, Bethany, I know that you have a lot of things that you're connected in the paranormal world. So can you kind of share with our guests who you are, what you are, kind of what brought you into this world?
Yeah, I am a very open-minded person. My name is Bewitched by Bethany. I do tarot readings, psychic readings, those kinds of things. So I'm very open-minded, but I'm also very skeptical and cautious about the things I see and experience because I believe our eyes and our mind can play tricks on us. And really, where all this started was I'm a traveler. I live in a conversion van. I was traveling down from Washington to Tucson, Arizona, and I'd stopped in Sedona to get some solar upgrades. This was October 28th, 2021. And I had locked myself in for the night and went to sleep and woke up in the middle of the night to hearing something outside my vehicle. And I'm a very light sleeper, especially being alone, traveling around. I'm very cautious of anything around my surroundings. And I heard something moving around in the brush, kind of sounded like it was something, maybe 5 feet tall or so. And then I heard an owl. And I was thinking, well, I don't know. I've never met an owl that's 5 feet tall. But so I thought there was maybe two different things out there. Wasn't for sure. And I wanted to move and see what it was because I have blackout curtains. But at the same time, I was kind of like, forget it, wherever, And then I heard the owl, and it just put me into this very relaxed, deep, almost hypnotic state. And I went into this deep sleep. Well, then I remember waking up, and I hadn't even opened my eyes yet. And I had this quick, like, two flashes very fast. And the first was me being beamed up out of my van. And then the second, I was laying on this table, and I remember it felt like metal and it felt cold. And these bright lights in my eyes, and I couldn't stand it because I'm very sensitive to bright lights. And I didn't see any beings or anything around me, but I felt that there was something there. And I just, when I fully opened my eyes, I thought, what the heck happened? I was very shocked. I didn't feel I was harmed, but I felt violated in the sense that I felt I was taken without me knowing or my permission. So I was very shocked, and it took me. I kind of wanted just to ignore it, honestly. I got in the front of my car, I drove, I went right back to Sedona because this was happening in Prescott. I left Sedona, I was just kind of too many people. It was going to be a week till my parts came in. So I went there for the first time. It was my first night there. Haven't been back since. So I went to Sedona, tried to forget about it. Many months went by, and I couldn't get it out of my head. So I started one day randomly, like this, just thought, I'm going to start researching some of this. So I started researching owls specifically. And then next thing I know, a whole another rabbit hole opened. And it was this, I found this gentleman online who had been researching owls and alien abduction and the connection. And I thought, oh my goodness, like maybe this is where I'm going to get somewhat of an answer or some sort of insight in this situation because it was, frustrating not knowing what happened. And I watched his video and it was very enlightening and made me feel a little bit better about the whole situation, made me feel less alone because it's happened to a lot of other people. And it made me feel less crazy too, because you feel like a crazy person. I mean, I wasn't like going and telling my mom or anyone that this happened because they would just think I'm nuts. So I really kept it to myself. Um, so all of that had happened, and then I just kind of went about life and didn't think much about it. And then nothing crazy happened for many years, and then here I am down in Tucson, Arizona right now. And starting at the end of September, I heard these dogs outside barking on this BLM land where I camp in South Tucson. And then I heard the coyotes, and I'm thinking, okay, there's something out there. I should probably check. I look, I don't really see anything except for what possibly looks like some sort of an orb. I don't know. I can't label it as that, but looked like a light that was real low to the ground. And I started videoing it, and I saw quite a few of these for about a week or so. Eventually, after that, I started noticing these beings, and then they started to get closer and closer and closer. And one thing led to another. I feel like I have been living a hell since then. I don't want to talk too much about that scenario because I'm still dealing with that experience. It has not been fun. I would say from my experiences, the two different experiences that I've had, from what I've learned, there are some beings out there that are not trying to harm you, and there are some that are trying to harm you, and they're not fun, the ones that want to harm you. It can be absolutely horrible if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you're dealing with. It can be like you're living a nightmare. They can psychologically try to mess with you. They can physically mess with you. There's just so many layers to it, and I'm still learning as the days go on, and I'm still in the middle of experiencing this. So yeah, it's been wild.
Uh, So
Absolutely
I
wild.
don't even know what to, yeah, I don't even know what to say other than the word wow. Uh,
Me
so
too.
so so let me. So I was taking notes is why. So when we do these types of sessions, I want to be kind of the voice of the listener, but I've always identified myself as a healthy skeptic. But the first thing that you had mentioned was very much kind of the classic abduction experience. The I hear something and not sure what it is, missing time. The owl, seems to
Hmm.
be very, very prevalent. So your research is really indicative of what we hear a lot. That owl, whether it's the classic gray with the large eyes, but that owl impression, whether that's, many believe that that's just kind of the, imprint that you're given to kind of offset, the idea that you've had some kind of an experience. So when you had your first experience, I get the sense that you weren't there looking for anything. You were just kind of doing your thing. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, yes. I'm an introvert naturally, so I don't do well in the city. I don't do well being around a lot of people. And I had been in Sedona for several days, and I was having what I would call wanderers. I mean, they were kind of homeless, I think. Coming up to me every day. Oh, do you have water? Do you have food? And I'm thinking, what? Am I driving a Mercedes van? No, you know.
Mm.
So, so I was
Right.
just. I needed to get a break. I needed to get away. And since my RV guy said, "Oh, your parts aren't going to be in for about a week," I thought, well, hey, I've never been to Prescott. I'm going to go there and check it out. So I looked up some land and I just went there to go hang out and be alone in nature, and everything seemed fine. I took a few pictures of the area I was at, and I told my mom, because she always wanted to know where I was at. And then everything seemed fine. And when I went back later to research the date and the time, I thought it was really interesting. The time I took the picture, it was exactly 2:34, and I see that number all the time. So I thought, that's kind of interesting. But I just went to
Yeah.
go relax. I mean, I didn't even. I went to sleep. It was in the middle of the night. I was already asleep when I heard these noises. So it was
Right.
very weird, very interesting for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, Sedona having its, vortexes or very clear psychic connection. Interestingly enough, when you mentioned Prescott, we actually had a chance to do a little bit of research. Our head researcher did, to see what, if any, historical suggestions of previous abductions, I guess, or at the very least, previous contacts. And there's been a long, relatively consistent history of UFO activity in the Prescott area. In fact, and certainly, when you expand it, certainly all throughout Arizona, when you look at some of the more well-known cases, the Travis Waltons and such like that, that was all in the not too far away from where you were. So you had mentioned that for years after that, you kind of just, kind of put it off to the side. Did you have any experiences, or did that kind of, start you mentioned the rabbit hole, which I think is such a great name, it's such a great, because, we're all jumping into some version of that rabbit hole. But for that period of time after that thing took place, were you getting involved, curious, trying to figure out what happened?
No, no, not at all. Honestly, I really just wanted to just forget it and just like live like I guess you would call a normal life, and just work and focus on
Hmm.
doing Bewitched by Bethany and all of that stuff. And I was just
Hmm.
hoping I wouldn't have to ever experience anything like that again, because again I didn't feel like I was harmed. I just felt I don't. I'm a free spirit, and I don't like things being I don't like being taken or held like in a jail or some sort of situation where I don't feel free.
Of course
And to
not.
me that was
Right.
violating. And so I just really didn't want to give thought to it or energy to it. So I was just focusing
Hmm.
on all of my things, and then just going about life. And so when the situation happened in Tucson, I thought, oh Lord, please don't even, like, I don't want to go there, you know.
Hmm.
It had been
Sure.
years, and I just was going about doing my life. And yeah, it's interesting you mentioned all the activity in Prescott because when I was trying to narrow down this location, because many people were asking me on social media, well, where in Prescott is this? And I said, I don't know. I stayed there one night, never again. So I had to get locals, and they were telling me all their experiences, and then they told me, oh, we know right where that location is. So it's really interesting, as many of the locals there have their own stories of their experiences, some good, some bad. So it's fascinating, but it just at the same time, I kind of wish I could move myself into a totally different world where I don't have to even experience or think about any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those, be careful what you wish for. Do you think that
Exactly.
your experience, so obviously the Bewitched by Bethany, was that something that you had a presence in prior to this experience?
No, so I was just doing massage and hypnosis and cranial sacral, those sorts of things. I did tarot just for my friends and those readings for just close people, but I started to do it more full time as I moved out of the massage world because I'd done it for about a decade and I got burnt out of massage. So I just started doing it more for that, and I felt it was more of a calling for me because I did a psychic fair and I just had so many wonderful experiences with people coming to my table and just beautiful things. And I'm like, okay, this is my calling, this is what I need to do. And then I started putting a lot more energy and focus on that, on the Bewitched. And it's been amazing for me, and it's been very healing and very much a learned. I'm learning so many things every day. I learn from my clients, they learn from me. It goes both ways.
So do you think that your sensitivity or embrace of that of the paranormal world may have had an influence on, the experience that you had?
Yes, I do. I do think the fact that I'm open-minded and that I'm psychic and in tune to those things. I also want to mention too that I am O negative, and I know there is a big connection between O negative and abductions. So I thought I should throw that out there. But I don't go looking for anything. I stay very centered. I stay very much, focused on the things I need to focus on for the day, my duties, those sort of things. I don't ever go looking. Um, so it's like if an experience comes to me, it's really it's shocking. It's just out of nowhere. My mind, as it stays very centered. But in the last 12 days, it has been very challenging to stay centered because these beings have been trying every single angle to mess with me.
So so let's move into that, obviously, because most of our listeners are in the Tucson area. And again, thank you so much. I'm Don Zavis. You're listening to Tucson Paranormal Society Inside Tucson podcast. We've got our guest Bethany today, and so now Bethany, you had this, kind of moved into the paranormal world with Bewitched by Bethany after this experience took place,
Yes,
and now you find yourself in Tucson. By the way, Tucson has a long history of UFOs and just paranormal things in general, as does pretty much a lot of southern Arizona does. In fact, our one of our claim to fame is the crafts that were spotted in the Phoenix Lights, which was the
yes.
number one mass sighting. Actually traveled over Tucson and actually traveled over Davis Moffett. So we have kind of an arm's length connection in that. So the question. So this has been going on for a period of time. As I
Mhm.
understand, you had moved to a couple different places in Tucson, or was this all in the exact same spot?
So this second event that happened was always in the same spot in South Tucson. And I got goosebumps when you said Davis Mathis Air Force Base. It's right in between the Davis Air Force Base and the Tucson Airport. And there's a BLM land out there, and that's where it happened. But they don't stay in that area; they'll go wherever they want. But that's where this whole thing started, and it's been a nightmare. I wouldn't wish what I've been experiencing the last 12 days on my worst enemy. And I don't have any enemies, but I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Sure. Now, would you ever consider? I mean, someone might say, just move. I mean, you've got the ability to, you've got a vehicle, you've got transportation. Moving is not
But
not is clearly an option. Do you see a
yeah,
reason why? Because
I do plan to move. Actually, I plan to fly out here in sometime around the 1st of April. But I did go all the way to Maricopa, and they didn't stop. It didn't stop them. And I have my own conspiracies about it, but it's conspiracy. I don't have, it's just a thought. I don't have evidence to base any of it on. I mean, I have a little bit here things I've experienced myself, but yeah.
so take our listeners through. So now you're into, and that's kind of where I jumped on the train with you. So
Okay.
Bethany had reached out to the Tucson Paranormal Society and had provided us with a series of videos and still photographs Karen Hill, who's one of our leaders in the Tucson Paranormal Society. You may know her. She is the divisional representative for MUFON here in the Tucson area. And for those that don't know, MUFON is the largest kind of UFO clearinghouse on Earth in terms of a place where you can share your experiences. So Karen had an opportunity to go out there. Well, so we certainly took this and continue to take it very seriously. So Bethany, I jumped on with you, I think pretty early in your experiences. And you, I guess, they come across Tucson Paranormal Society. So can you kind of bring us to ground zero, that like the first experience that you had, and then maybe we can kind of elaborate as it's kind of progressed.
Yeah, so the first experience was, again, with those dogs and then the coyotes making noise and then the orbs. And I watched those for about a week or so. And then next thing I know, I'm seeing out kind of far out in the distance, I'm seeing these beings. I don't know how to describe them other than they're just different kind of creatures. Some of them are different colors. And I'm thinking, am I really seeing this? And I'm taking pictures. And yeah, they're kind of blurry because I got an old phone. And I send them to my friends. And, I say, what do you see? Some of them could see them. Some of them could not. And, I don't give it too much thought. And then they start to come closer and closer and closer. And then one day, March 12th, I'm sitting in my car in the front seat. I'm doing some sort of graphics or some work on my phone. And I look up and I am surrounded by beings, and they're very close. I mean, they're a few feet away. And in front of all these beings is these bat-looking things with red eyes. And behind them are these different beings. And you can't really see much because it's dark. You just kind of see shadowy figures. Well, this one specifically, it kept trying to come close to me. And I was like, no, stop. You're not coming any further. I mean, I told them, no, you do not come any further, and they'd stop, but then they would try to come closer and then they would stop again because I would tell them to stop. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to battle these things all night. I'm not going to get any sleep because they looked eerie to me. They did not look benevolent. They did not look friendly. So I thought, I'm going to have to stay up all night and battle these things. So I'm just like, okay, well, I might as well get some snacks while I'm here, watch the movie. So I got some snacks and I'm sitting here just battling these things. And then I started to write things down because I'm thinking, okay, if something serious happens or I am, taken or go missing, I need some sort of documentation for them to have something to follow. I look at my phone and it's 11:15 p.m. and I have no service. Everything's cut off. And I'm taking a screenshot of this because I'm like, I need this information. I grab my paperwork. I start writing with pencil. I'm like, okay, I need to write stuff down. 11:15, I'm checking the time. Next thing you know, I'm just making sure to remain eye contact with these beings, and telling them, do not cross, don't come any closer. And, I'm locking my doors if that's going to do anything, And then I got my EMF tester, and which is weird. Randomly, my friend in Phoenix several months ago gave me an EMF tester. And so I turn it on, and I'm getting 171 reading. I write it down, and then I turn it off, and I'm just sitting there. And then still trying to fight them. Check the time again. It's around 12:30, and then I check again around 1:59. Now, from 1:59 to 3:30, I didn't check it, or something. I don't know. Maybe I was gone. I don't know what happened. And then 3:30 till 5:15, I have no idea what happened. I'm missing time. There's pictures on my phone that I know I did not take. So many eerie things. The times I was awake and was watching what was going on around me, it's going to sound crazy, but in the distance, I saw this, what I would call, it looked like a little train car, but not a train. It was on tires go by. And it went from the left to the right. It started heading towards Los Reales, I think is how you pronounce that street. And the next thing I know, I see one even closer. And then next thing I see a third one. The third one's really close to me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, please tell me I'm not going to end up being taken and put in this thing.
Sure.
And then I'm also seeing all these UFOs around me. And there's one off to the right. And it's like they had the door open and like they were waiting for me to walk on. And I was like, oh, hell no. No. I was like, you guys are eerie. I am not going on that thing. I do not feel like the energy didn't feel right to me. Now, if it felt, calm and, gentle, and that'd be different. Heck yeah, I'd walk on. But it just did not feel right. So I was like, I'm not going nowhere. So I stayed there. But like I said, next thing I know, I'm checking my phone. It's 5:15ish, and I don't know what happened the last couple of hours. And I made sure to make notes because I wanted to, make sure I had remembered everything of the night, and I had, it was solid, and all that. And then when it's 5:15ish, I start to see these things leading. And what's interesting, so when they first come in, I know it sounds crazy, but when they first come in, they just look like lights. They just look like three little lights, and then they come in. And there's so much more to it. Honestly, I don't even want to mention it all because it's so creepy and eerie. But they come in as these lights, and then they create this like net thing, and it's like this noise that turns on. So always around 11:15, you start to hear this noise turn on. It's like a whoa, whoa, whoa. And then the EMS, that's when the EMS are real high. I think that's when this machine or device, whatever it is these beings are using, is activated. And then it gets shut off around 4ish and they start to go back to wherever they came from, right? And I remember these lights creating this like net thing around me because it's not just lights, it's like lights connected in like a triangle thing. Anyway, and I remember seeing in my mirror in my van that they were behind me, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So I just turned my car on, and I was ready to get out of there, even though there was these things in my pathway. I thought, I'm going to run over it. I don't care what it is. I'm leaving. And the next thing I know, I'm awake, and it's 5 something. So I don't know. I think I tried to leave, and then it's just lost. I don't know what happened. Memory wiped. I don't know, but it's creepy. And yeah, even though I'm all the way in North Tucson, where I'm at now, they'll still follow me everywhere.
Yeah, well, I think we would all agree on it's a 10 plus on the creepy meter. So now,
Yeah.
just so I can play devil's advocate, obviously you're adjacent to the airport, and now I should also mention Bethany, by the way, had not only sent this to me, we shared it with our entire leadership of the Tucson Paranormal Society. Karen Hill actually did an investigation where they actually went out along with some other individuals as witness and met Bethany and apparently there were some individuals homeless or something like that were kind of out there in the world, and we have a standing rule that sometimes the real people can be as scary as the ones that are kind of in the dark. So had to kind of abruptly close that off. So we did have a chance to take a look at the videos. We did take a look at the photographs. They didn't. Aircraft has certain very characteristic things. The colors of the lights, the blinking patterns, the the fact that it travels in a reasonably straight line. We didn't really have a lot of that with yours. Some of the orbs were very close to the ground. Didn't really seem to have a light source. There was, as she said, a lot of the pictures were blurry, so it was, very hard. But there were some that, read something was very clear in the photograph at a place where a red something really shouldn't be. Whether those were eyes or whatever ultimately they were, that they should not have been. So many of the things that we can debunk that are very, very obvious. I did reach out to the airport and ask them for under the freedom of information, but really I just contacted the media representative, the person that does public relations and communications, and said identified who I was, where I was, why I was calling, and was there anything on these dates that that they thought was unusual to coincide with what Bethany had. The standard rule, by the way, we've noticed is no, we haven't experienced anything out of the ordinary. And I think that's code for this stuff happens all the time, therefore it's not out of the ordinary. And they can say kind of something like that without actually lying. So, Bethany, so you've been there. This has been going on for weeks. Going on, I believe, up till the last couple of days. Is that not the case?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Last night was the first night I got a full night's worth of sleep since the incident happened on the 12th. And it started around the February 20th. Is when I started seeing the orbs, but it started getting real crazy after that night on the 12th.
So, and you had indicated that you're going to be leaving here, shortly.
Yeah, so there's a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely I'll be leaving.
Again, well, the thing that we find consistently is when people responded like, I can't imagine she stayed there that long, I would have gotten out of there immediately. But it's almost, I kind of call it, kind of like the car accident syndrome, right? You can't look away from something that is just so incredible that you almost, like if somebody said that there were beings surrounding my car and one had glowing red eyes and was bat-like, I would have hit the gas right then and there. And I always say that, you think that you would because that seems like it would be the thing that people would do. But in reality, a lot of times it's like you're so absorbed in what you're seeing and whether, there is some, I know you mentioned the word battling them and it's interesting because the language is one that we hear frequently. And now, were you speaking with them, or was it more telekinetic, or clairvoyance, or?
So I would speak just in my mind, like telepathically, but they would only respond usually with flashing their eyes. But I'd also speak out
Mhm.
loud. That's the only way they respond to me. But when they surrounded my van that night, they would not say anything. They would just stare at me. They would not respond to anything I would ask. And since then, they haven't tried to communicate with me. They've just tried to
Mhm.
mess with me. And part of me was almost like, okay,
Right.
is this some sort of military psyop? The military base is right
Mhm.
there. Was I in the wrong place, wrong time? I mean, my mind's going everywhere trying to figure out what this is. And I still don't
Okay.
have solid answers. I just know that
Right.
it's not fun to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And you did share some photographs of some buildings that were, potentially suspect in some capacity. Again, not to
Hmm.
go down the rabbit hole of any kind of conspiracy theories. But if you would make a generalization, do you think that that might have been, you know, instead of being otherworldly, could have been innerworldly?
I feel like it's a combination. Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I think
Hmm.
to a certain extent the government is involved. I also think that there's what I would call
Hmm.
reptilians involved, slash demons, whatever you want to
Hmm.
label them.
Hmm.
Just very low vibrational entities is what I would say. Nothing that's benevolent whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah, and again, that's a lot of what we hear is kind of a similar version of that. That is, we're not exactly sure, but this is my feeling, and whether the
Yes, and
feeling is generated by impression or geography or connection with a particular space or location, there generally is that just gut feeling that this is what it is. And someone like yourself that has had a developing history in psychic ability, which very clearly a lot of the evidence points that these you are much more prime and much more prone to having these interactions, because it's like anything. These people, you know, when I say these people, I'm assuming whatever they are, they really benefit from communicating with the psychic world, especially with it seems like it makes it much easier if if you were deaf, it's always easier to talk to someone who understands sign language than understand someone that doesn't. So kind of, what do you see your future? And by the way, thank you so much for sharing this. I mean, it's like a half hour goes by in the blink of an eye. Talk about lost time. So,
yes.
Bethany, anything you'd like to share about you? I've been to your website. I do believe that it is open to everyone. I do believe that you do make yourself available for additional conversations. If you'd like to share that now.
Yes, yes. I'm definitely I just wanted people to know that what I experienced and what I'm still experiencing, it has not been fun. And if anybody else has gone through that and doesn't know what to do, I'm happy to help them. I will say that for whatever reason, I've been doing all kinds of research on all these different entities, and this necklace that I just made yesterday is it's literally the first time I've slept solid since this incident happened on the 12th. Made me sleep through the night. I think that there's something to the element of the copper and all the things I put into it. But I just want to let other
Mhm.
people know you're not alone if you start to see weird things. Do not be scared
Mhm.
because they feed on fear. From what I realized, these low vibrational entities, whatever you want to call them, they feed on fear, and it's really important to not be fearful and that you're not alone. If somebody wants to text me, call me, they need help, I'm happy to do my best to help them since I've personally experienced it myself. And don't. A lot of people, it's interesting. You really start to see who your real friends are when you go through an experience that is very,
Oh,
you
that's
can't
true.
explain it. You really can't.
Yeah.
And the friends that are, you really start to see which ones are true. And my true friends that have been here for me, a lot of them are not even in Tucson. They're out of state because they know me. They know
Mhm.
how I am. And, I've got other
Sure.
friends that are like, are you sure you didn't get poisoned? Are you on drugs? Are you crazy? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, no, I'm
Mhm.
legitimately right here experiencing it
Mhm.
firsthand. So I
Right.
want the listeners to know that do not think that you're going crazy. Yes, there's weird things that happen in this world, in this universe that we don't have answers to. But
Right.
just to stay grounded and stay centered, that's what's most important. And just breathe and get through it. It'll be okay. We are sovereign beings,
Fantastic.
and I believe that these beings are low vibrational beings. So I believe we're protected.
No, I agree as well. Bethany, do you want to share like an email address or something with the listeners if they do want to reach out to you, or best to go to a website, or how would you like that to take place?
Yes, they can email me on Bewitched by Bethany, or they can just look me up on Google and text me. Text is the best way to reach me. That's 110% best way to reach me. So send me a
Okay.
text.
Okay.
I'm happy to help anybody.
Yeah, and it's Bewitched by Bethany, and that's, I'm sorry, Bewitched by Bethany, and that's was it Google, I believe, or yours?
At gmail.com. Gmail.
Okay, and would you like to share with the listeners your phone number?
Yes, that's no problem. It is 520-677-9239. And please be patient if I don't get back to you right away. It's just I've got a lot of things going on, and I'm still battling these things too. So please understand that as well.
I completely understand. So, Bethany, it's been an absolute privilege. I'll make sure you get a link of today's session as well. And, it just shows you that you don't got to travel around the earth to see something amazing in your own backyard. So thank you, Bethany. It's an absolute privilege. To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Again, it's a privilege to do this as well. And we look forward to having you join us at 10 o'clock every Monday at Tucson Paranormal Society inside Tucson Paranormal. So on behalf of myself and the entire Tucson Paranormal Society staff, we thank you so much. And our goal is to continue to try to explain the unexplainable. So have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and a wonderful remaining month of March. Thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye.